This story just popped up in my feed one day when I was just watching some YouTube clips about this architecture trend that's dividing London's elites, and it makes sense in that the sense that this space in London is at a premium, so you can't put, you can't build up, you can't build out. So if you've got the money, I guess, and can get the planning approval, you can build underneath, your property. And there's examples of extravagant, basically, for lack of a better term, basements, which don't, that term doesn't exactly conjure up Richville or anything like that. But they were showing in this video, apart from the issues that it was causing, these rather extravagant sort of underground lairs, for lack of a better term, complete with swimming pools and gyms, bars, basically a whole other residence underground. But obviously, it leads to potential issues if not planned properly and not checked properly. And although this particular video was talking about, can't remember his name now. It was a musician or something, and he was he recorded. It was a couple of years ago, I think, where he recorded that his privileged basement got flooded, largely because of an issue to do with the surroundings and that sort of thing. But then there's also the fact that, one of I think there was an elite soccer player who was now living in London, retired, had actually said, look, stop approving these things because it might be, giving some pleasure to a couple of people, but it's actually making a nightmare for everyone else because you go down a street and it's just never ending construction while they're excavating and whatnot. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting story because, like on the one hand, I can see why people would be wanting to do this in London, but at the same time, it seems like there might be a bit more consideration needed in terms of planning approvals and checking whether it's actually suitable to do that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, look, London's an example of a city that, has largely been built over the last 200-300 years, and we're in modern times. I mean, one of the things about London is it's still largely a low-rise city, and the buildings are old, and, obviously, as you've pointed out, space is at a premium. So if you can't go up, you go down. But the other thing about London is it's actually, most people don't know this, built on a series of sort of islands and sort of on a, delta around the Thames, which obviously now we can still see the Thames, but we can't see the bits that they've filled in. So, you start building big lavish basements underground and you're diverting water around your house into other people's places. And, you only have to watch a few episodes of Grand Designs to see there's not much space in London. So if you really want to put in something big and you're going to dig a big hole, you're going to disrupt everyone around you for months on end. People are living closely together. So it's a unique problem. It's a futuristic problem. It might even be a futuristic solution in it, but it's pretty hard because what you're seeing is individuals doing this for themselves, and it's not an upgrade of, say, the whole area. So no doubt it's causing problems on a whole range of levels.
I guess that touches on more globally the idea of planning in cities. Obviously, because that's where I guess the biggest issues are, because you've got less space to deal with, and that there has to be. I guess a level of oversight in the sense that you have to make sure that you're not disrupting the whole area. And like the classic example from my perspective was, and I won't name names in terms of planning ministers, but Melbourne had famously had one that would just basically sign off on everything, and then you had no plan for how, because all these individual companies would build their buildings, but there wasn't actually a plan overriding the whole thing. Which then led to criticism afterwards that it had to be reined in.
Well, and, I think most of us, the general population, would think that that's actually the job of planning, is not to stop you from putting up a shed in your backyard, but to stop, people reshaping whole suburbs. I think the other interesting thing about London is it is home to some of the wealthiest people on the planet. And, when you've got that much money, if you want to dig a 6-story bunker beneath your house, it's probably unlikely anyone's going to stop you. Certainly not the council planning guy who's probably on 60,000 quid a year.
Money talks, as they say.